Up next was one of my favorite matches of the weekend. It's not any surprise there. The Intercontinental title match with Gunther against Sami Zayn.
I'm dying to hear what you thought of this because it took us all for a surprise.
Well, I was all the way there till I knew about 5 minutes beforehand what they were going to do in the finish. I was like, "You got to be ribbing me," because it couldn't be anything else at that point. But Edward, we'll talk about it in a second. But thoughts of the match? Sammy had already. We've established his wife and his son were in the back, and he tells them, he tells her, "Don't let my son be out there. I don't want him to see it in person, watch on TV, whatever." And then Gable told him, "Go out by yourself. You got this. I'm not going with you." And he gets a pep talk from Steen, too. So the match was brilliant in that Gunther looks incredible. He's always perfect, as we've talked about. Sami Zayn, I think I mentioned this back years ago before they ever even started, doing all this, pushing him on top as a single. I said, Sammy can sell better than most people. And he's also been brilliant verbally. It's just he looks like he looks. I can't even say he looks like shit. He looks like Sammy. For the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's, but part of it helps his look actually kind of lends into his underdog persona. But the match was great because Gunther's going to dominate and the babyface underdog is going to fight from underneath. And this was a perfect dynamic for that. And the fans were into it. And these guys knew how to put their match together, and they knew how to execute it. And they got big false finishes, 2 counts with power bombs and clotheslines out of nowhere. And Gunther's a heel. He got heel heat in front of Sammy's wife. And his attitude and his facials, the way that he projects himself. So, and then you've, got the ultimate baby face and this guy that looks like he ought to be working at a goddamn, video game store or comic shop, except that he's a WWE superstar. We can identify with him, right? He's he's the Eddie Marlin principal. He looks like one of the fans. And finally, where I knew was when Gunther started taking his time and a splash off the top, and then he hit another one, I think maybe 2, but he wouldn't cover him. He's taunting the wife, and Sammy's fighting to his feet. And Gunther goes to the top like he's going to, do something again. And Sammy runs, gives him the kick and the brainbuster on the top turnbuckle. And I don't know if you remember this, Brian, but I told you years ago when he was El Generico in Ring of Honor, look at that fucking physique. He is stronger than he looks. Because he did that to Steen one time when Steen was even fatter than he is now. He can pick the guy up and turn him to where the gravity can take over, which is no, small feat. And he gave Gunther the brainbuster on the top turnbuckle and then 2 of the kicks and covered him 1, 2, 3. And it got a huge pop, yes, but what the fuck? And I'm not saying that Sami Zayn shouldn't be used as a main event guy. And a lot of people like him. He's very popular. But they had something going with Gunther that I think it needed to be either a really, it was this Seth thing after he's lost his world title. Or was this LA Knights thing to establish himself maybe one step up? Or was this Braun Breaker's thing to shock? Can you imagine? And maybe the closest we get to Gunther and Brock. Gunther and Braun Breaker, where Braun Breaker would explode onto the fucking main roster and, get a win over this dominant beast. Is Sammy really going to be that much more over at any point in time than he already is? And that's not a knock on him. That's saying he's already over. Did he need the way they built it? People wanted to see it, but was this the time to spend Gunther's loss on a guy that's already in a prominent position?
I don't know. Obviously, going into it, I wouldn't have done it. I've been saying all along, I said on the show months ago, it would have been Braun Breaker in my eyes at the time, just because it would have elevated him right away and given him credibility.
Yeah.
I think that the Sami Gunther thing started really clicking because the Sami Gable story did too. And the comparisons between what's been happening in Rocky 3, where Rocky has to train with his former rival, Apollo Creed, to be able to get past the guy that beat him, Clubber Lang.
Wait a minute, I thought that's the angle that Moxley wanted to do with Punk.
Apparently it was, and they did it here. I mean, it seems like they're doing it with Gable and Sami. Gable kept saying, I want one favor from you after this. That's what Apollo Creed kept saying.
Yeah.
He ended up wanting to box with Rocky in an empty arena just so he would know for himself who was better. I don't think they're going to do that. But they've set up some kind of story with him and Gable. So for that reason, I'm curious to see where it goes. And I don't know if I want a series of rematches with Gunther and Sami, but this is a chance to do something new with Gunther. Look, they got a new world champion on one show and on both shows. This is the chance to do something new with Gunther.
Well, we will talk about those new champions shortly, but it's still night one, folks. There's things going on.